Hello, welcome to today's episode of Guide Adventures. My name is Guy, and we're now looking at the actual adventure for this dinosaur-inspired monster hunting colossal space. Just a reminder, this was inspired by the Kickstarter Trail of the Behemoth, which was successfully funded, but the late pledges are still open. Details down below. Go check it out if you like. Those are custom rules for a custom role-playing game. And so, I very proudly present to you Titan Slayer. Level 10 plus characters. 10 plus. And they should probably be 15 or more by the time they get to the final combat. Because this is a tough adventure. And it's got some delightful little twists and turns in it, and there's a lot of optional stuff as well, which you as the DM get to decide when you inject into the game or not. Again, those are more pacing kind of things if the players have had too much combat and you want to give them some social stuff, or if they've had too much social stuff and you want to give them some combat. It's all there to enjoy. There are 5 steps as usual. First creature is the Catavore. Now, the Catavore, I think, is a really nasty piece of work. It's very straightforward though. And what I did was I created these images where I brought in this little knight on a horse, and you can see him running away from the Catavore to try and help with the sense of scale. So the Catavore is about the size, give or take, of the largest Gigantosaurus you've ever seen. It really would be at the upper limit of the T-Rex, Gigantosaur, Spinius, you know, the big apex predator of the dinosaur kind of things. But it's one of the smallest in terms of our titanic monsters, because we have the benefit of magic. Anyway, so they fight the Catavore, and they might get a barbarian magical loincloth, which is quite fun, because I often will include a demonstration of the monster's ability in the form of an NPC. So in this case, a barbarian runs through the bush shouting, "Silver! Silver!" Why is he shouting silver, silver? We don't know. In this case, Catavore eats the barbarian in front of the PCs and then turns on the PCs. Smart PCs will go, silver, oh, silvered weapons, because the Catavore has a weakness to silver. And so then they defeat that. They move on to the village, which is really cool. The village has got a lot of people who are really friendly and helpful. There's no maliciousness going on at the village here whatsoever. The village will also help train the PCs up on what to do with the parts of the Catavore. And if the PCs didn't harvest the Catavore, the village will say, oh, no, we've got to go and get that. We've got to go and get those parts right quick. The sooner we get those parts, the better. We can make stuff for you out of that. Look, we'll show you. And then they go ahead and show the PCs what they need to do. The village then leads them onto the Balliox. And I made these little sort of torn out diary notes, made this whole thing very sketchy, just because I think it's a different way of presenting it. So Balliox ejectus is the name of the creature. And then there's some very cryptic writing, which I purposefully made illegible to a degree. If you've got really good handwriting, readable skills, you might be able to read what it says there. It says, spines seem to be coated in a poison or corrosive substance. Extreme caution is suggested when dealing with this creature. Do not engage in a fight, it says basically. And there you can see the scale. The little knight now, much smaller. This is now bigger than almost any of the creatures that we looked at. It's not double the size of an Alamosaurus, but it's right up there at 1.5 times the size of an Alamosaurus. Very big, scary thing. And mainly it's range-based for its attacks. And then they continue their journey, which is where they then encounter the dwarves. And that's a long, or not necessarily a long, it is a complex social encounter. If they don't do the dwarves, there is a skill challenge. And the skill challenge, of course, is how do they cross the mountains, survive, and get to where they are going, this sort of the origin of this gigantic monster, the big monster, if you will. Of course, if they do the social stuff, then there's just a whole bunch of options for them. Once they then get to Loch Gyda, because Loch Gyda is where this beast has been created, hence its name, the Gydarex, the king of Gyda, king of the area. And that's then when they encounter 3 hill giants, because why not? The 3 hill giants are busy building a statue for this beast. They revere it as a god and also function as a warning, because Loch Gyda has been completely filled in with soil and rock and mud because of what this Gydarex is doing. It's busy ripping a tunnel or a gap in the mountains so that it can leave the mountains. And in doing so, it's filled up the loch with all of this detritus. But that has turned it into a giant mud bath. So whilst fighting this creature, PCs who enter into the mud zone are going to start sinking in the mud, and they're going to need to make athletics checks to not sink and eventually become consumed by the mud, whilst the Gydarex is immune, because the Gydarex is, 190 feet tall and doesn't care about the mud. It adds a complication to the battle, and of course the fact that this thing is titanic makes it even more complicated. Once they've defeated the Gydarex, that's it. The adventure is over. They've got all of these wonderful and cool parts. They have fought the largest of the creatures, and they discover that these things are mostly sleeping in the world state. They are in a state of slumber. They were put to sleep by the gods millennia ago, and they can be woken, and that's that. It also allows for you to include more of these creatures in your world if your players enjoyed this kind of stuff. But if they didn't enjoy it, if they're like, wow, lame, too much effort, it took too long, I hated it, etc., well, then you just say, well, they're all slumbering and no one knows how to wake them up. The dwarves who did wake this one up, well, at the end of the adventure, if they do kill the Gydarex, the dwarvish people have cut the head off of the man who resurrected this monster out of shame and then seal themselves inside of their mountain for all eternity. It's just one of those neat little tie-ups. It's like, no, if you don't want more, we won't give you more. If you want more, well, there will be scrolls all over this planet where you can resurrect these things and have new fights and things like that. So we then have to look at the maps that we needed. Now, I need 3 maps, 3 encounters. Well, there's multiple encounters, as a matter of fact, but there's 3 encounters where the terrain actually makes a difference. So I need to create 3 maps, and that is next week's video. The 3 maps that I needed to make. Anyway, massive thank you to my wonderful patrons who will all get a copy of this adventure at the end of the month, and for you for watching all the way until the very end. Remember to hit that little bell button to be alerted when more videos drop, as well as the subscribe button or even just the like button. It helps this channel immensely. Until next time, I wish you and yours the happiest of adventure creation.